We live in a world that constantly tells us to be cool, to not care too much, to play it safe emotionally. But the truth is, the way we communicate with the people we care about is a direct reflection of how we value them. And I want to say this clearly, inconsistency is not romantic. It's not mysterious. It's not a sign of someone being busy or complicated or just figuring things out. It's emotional unavailability, dressed up in just enough effort to keep you hoping. When someone is important to us, we show up. It doesn't mean every day is full of poetic texts or long phone calls. It means there's a rhythm, a reliability, a presence. If someone reaches out to you when it's convenient for them, but disappears when things get real or when it doesn't serve them, that's not connection. That's control. That's someone keeping you close enough to stay in their orbit, but far enough that they never have to be accountable for how their actions affect you. We need to stop romanticizing the kind of communication that leaves us doubting ourselves. If you're staring at your phone, second guessing whether you're being too needy for wanting a reply, I want to tell you, you're not. You're not asking for too much. You're asking for clarity, for consistency, for mutual respect. That's the baseline of healthy connection, not some extravagant demand. I think a lot of us have confused unpredictability with passion. But love doesn't thrive in chaos. It grows in the safety of being seen and known. And when someone can't consistently show up in small ways, they're not going to show up in the big ones. If they text only when they're bored, when they need something, or when they want to feel wanted, what they're really saying is, you're not a priority. You're a placeholder. And that's a hard truth, because I know what it feels like to get just enough breadcrumbs to stay hopeful. But we deserve more than that. We deserve conversations that aren't just sparked by loneliness or ego. We deserve to be communicated with because someone genuinely cares, not because they want to keep us on the hook. Here's what I know. Consistency isn't boring, it's safe. And safe is what makes vulnerability possible. If you have to chase clarity or beg for time, it's not a relationship, it's a one-sided emotional investment. And your heart, your presence, your voice, they deserve to be honored, not put on hold. You don't have to earn someone's attention by shrinking, waiting, or pretending you're okay with crumbs. You are worth the full meal. There's a moment we all recognize, though we don't always admit it, when we open up, say something vulnerable, something real, and it lands with silence or a change of subject, maybe a joke, maybe a shrug. And in that moment, we shrink. We tell ourselves, maybe that was too much. But let's be clear, it wasn't too much. It was just too real for someone who isn't ready or willing to meet you there. Emotional responsiveness is what intimacy is built on. It's not about always having the perfect answer or being a therapist to your partner. It's about being present when someone is brave enough to let you into their inner world. When someone tells you they're scared, when they share a dream or a fear or a hurt from their past, and you deflect or dismiss it. That's not protecting them, that's disconnecting from them. We grow up thinking love is just about showing up physically, checking boxes, being there on paper. But if you're showing up and emotionally shutting down every time it gets hard, then what you're really saying is, you can be close to me, but only if you keep it light. And we can't build real love on top of emotional avoidance. I want to be honest about something here. Emotional responsiveness takes courage. It takes a willingness to be uncomfortable, to sit with things that might not have tidy answers. But that's the kind of presence that makes someone feel safe. That's the kind of response that says, I see you. I'm not going anywhere. If someone consistently fails to meet your vulnerability with care, curiosity, or at the very least presence, then it's not just a rough patch, it's a pattern. And patterns tell us the truth even when words try to cover it up. The most painful form of rejection isn't being left, it's being emotionally ignored. To be next to someone, to try and share yourself, and to feel invisible, that's a kind of loneliness that cuts deeper than solitude. Because at least when you're alone, you're not trying to earn space that should already be yours. When you're with someone who can't or won't respond to your emotional truth, what often happens is you start editing yourself. You stop saying what you need. You dilute your feelings. You become smaller, quieter, easier. And the tragedy is that's not love. That's self-abandonment dressed up as compromise. You deserve someone who doesn't flinch when things get real. Someone who leans in, not out, when your guard comes down. Because vulnerability is not weakness. It's the birthplace of connection, and anyone who treats it like a burden isn't ready for the kind of love that lasts. You are not too much. You're just trying to be seen. There's something incredibly heavy about being the one who always reaches out first. And I don't just mean texts or phone calls. I mean the effort, the planning, the emotional energy. Being the one who checks in, initiates the conversations, notices the distance, and tries to close the gap. When that kind of effort isn't met with reciprocity, it slowly starts to erode your sense of worth. Not all at once, little by little, in quiet ways. We tell ourselves stories to make it okay. He's just not good at communication, or maybe he's going through something and doesn't know how to talk about it. And while compassion is beautiful, self-betrayal is not. When you're the only one carrying the emotional weight of a relationship, it stops being mutual. It becomes a performance where one person is trying to keep something alive that the other person hasn't truly shown up for. Effort is a language. It speaks without words, and when someone isn't making the effort to connect, to reach out, to show they care, it's not because they forgot how. It's because, consciously or not, they've decided it's not a priority. That's not easy to accept, especially when your heart is fully in it. But your willingness to show up doesn't mean they will meet you there. And that's not your fault. It's not a flaw in you. It's a reflection of where they are and what they're willing to give. Relationships are built, not balanced on one person's shoulders. And when you're constantly the initiator, you start to wonder, would this relationship exist if I stopped trying? That question can be terrifying, because if the answer is no, you have to face the reality that what you're holding on to might be an illusion more than a connection. And I want to say this clearly, you should never have to beg for presence. You shouldn't have to convince someone to care. You shouldn't have to chase what's supposed to be mutual. There is a difference between showing patience and tolerating neglect. One is rooted in love, the other in fear. When it's real, when it's healthy, effort flows in both directions. Maybe not always perfectly, maybe not at the same pace, but both people are invested. Both people want to nurture the bond. They want to hear how your day was. They want to know what's on your mind. They don't disappear when life gets busy. They make room for you inside of it. If you're always the one initiating, let that be data. Not judgment, not shame, just information. Because the way someone shows up for you is the clearest answer to whether they value you. And you deserve to be chosen without having to audition for it. One of the most confusing and exhausting places to be is in the gray zone, that space where nothing is clearly defined, but everything feels just close enough to keep you invested. You're not in a relationship, but you're not exactly free either. You're not a priority, but you're not completely dismissed. It's a place full of almosts, almost committed, almost seen, almost enough. And I want to be really honest here, that's not connection. That's control. When someone keeps you in that in-between space, when they say just enough to keep you alive, a hope, but never follow it up with consistent action, that's not because they're confused. That's not because they're healing or growing or not ready. It's because they're benefiting from your uncertainty. They know what you want, and they know how much you care. But instead of honoring that with clarity, they keep the waters muddy, because clarity would force a choice, and the gray zone allows them to avoid one. It's easy to confuse this behavior with emotional complexity. We think they're just scared, or maybe they've been hurt before, and maybe that's true. But someone's past pain doesn't give them permission to string you along in the present. We are all responsible for the impact we have on others, especially when we know they're invested. What makes the gray zone so painful is that it asks you to stay small. It teaches you not to ask too many questions, not to want too much, not to rock the boat. You end up editing your needs to avoid scaring them away, hoping that if you're easy enough, patient enough, good enough, they'll eventually choose you. But love is not earned by becoming less of yourself. It's recognized when you're free to be fully who you are. The goal of the gray rock, ambiguity, isn't romantic. It's exhausting. And what's even more damaging is how it teaches you to mistrust your own feelings. You start questioning your instincts. You gaslight yourself. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I just need to wait a little longer. But your need for clarity is not too much. It's the foundation of any emotionally honest connection. When someone is serious about you, you don't live in questions. You don't sit with a pit in your stomach wondering where you stand. You don't have to decode mixed signals or guess how much you matter. They show you. Not with just words, but with consistent, aligned action. Anything less is emotional limbo. And that's not love. That's uncertainty dressed up as potential. You don't need to stay where clarity is withheld. The goal of the gray rock, you don't need to shrink to fit into someone's maybe. There's a kind of loneliness that most people don't talk about. It's not the kind that comes from being alone. It's the kind that happens when you're with someone and still feel invisible. When you speak and they're not really listening, when you share something that matters to you and they nod, but their eyes are somewhere else, gray rock, their mind already moving past you, that kind of loneliness runs deep because it slowly teaches you that your voice, your presence, your needs, they don't carry weight. We all want to feel seen and heard. It's not a luxury or some poetic idea. It's a core human need. When we're seen, we feel real. When we're heard, we feel valued. And when those needs go unmet, we don't just feel disconnected from the other person. We start to disconnect from ourselves. We start wondering if we're asking for too much, if maybe we are too emotional, too sensitive, too needy. But I want you to know you're not. You're asking for the most basic kind of emotional safety. A relationship where you feel like you have to constantly tone yourself down, where you question whether it's safe to express what you think or feel, isn't a relationship. It's a performance. And no matter how hard you try to play the part perfectly, the H of not being seen only gets louder. Because deep down, you know it's not real if it's not fully you. There is a difference between someone being physically present and emotionally available. Someone can sit next to you every night and still not see you. They can say all the right words and still not hear you. It's not about grand gestures or big romantic moments. It's in the little things. Do they remember what matters to you? Do they ask follow-up questions? Do they respond with curiosity when you open up? Or do they shut it down, change the subject, or pretend they didn't notice? And maybe even more importantly, do you feel safe bringing your fulf into the room? Or do you feel like you're constantly editing, managing, adjusting just to keep the peace? If you're always second guessing whether you're too much, if you feel like you have to work for space in their life, that's not love. That's survival. You are not too sensitive. You are not too emotional. You are not asking for something unreasonable. Wanting to be seen and heard is what connection is built on. And the right person won't make you question that. They'll welcome it. You deserve to exist fully in the space you're in without shrinking, without apologizing, without begging to be understood.